Hi folks, I hope that you guys are doing pretty well. So today is Saturday, the 7th of December 2024. And in today's video, I'm going to decipher for you Psalm 81. Okay, now I do have a program here, which actually is 4 pages, folks, and it's actually a very important Psalms. It's actually one of the most important Psalms in the book of Psalms for a lot of reasons. So this video is for Israel only. Because it does have some historical context for Israel, especially in verse 5. Okay, now, this verse here, this is history for Israel. And if Israel's deciphers are not able to decipher this verse 5 here, especially how it says this, he ordained in Joseph for a testimony. If Israel's deciphers cannot decipher this, then they are missing out on history, on Jewish history. This is a very important verse here. This is kind of like a verse, if you like, of the birth of the nation of Israel. This must be deciphered time no matter what. But anyway, we'll go through that in a moment. Psalm 81 is important for a lot of reasons because on the first three verses here, 1 to 3, these are verses for the Millennium Kingdom, in which Jesus is coming out to be the King of Israel. Okay, so we're going to have the coronation, for Jesus as the King of Israel. Blow the trumpet in the new moon. Okay, how it ties into Ezequiel 46, verse 1, and also for Ezequiel 44, and so on. I will show you in a moment. And also, we have, aside from these three verses that are for the Millennial Kingdom, then in verses 8 and 9, these are also for the Millennial Kingdom, sandwiched in the middle of all these, in which here we got some historical accounts for Israel here. On verse we got, "Hear, O my people, and testify unto thee, O Israel, if you will hearken unto me." Meaning, saying, hey, Israel, you need to listen on verse 8, because on verse 9, there shall no strange God be in thee. This no strange God be in thee, this can only happen during the Millennial Kingdom, when Jesus comes back, and he puts the false prophet and the Antichrist into the lake of fire and brimstone, and the devil is going to burn them for 1,000 years in the abyss. And the devil, if you like, is the boss of all these little gods, and so all these gods are going to be judged, and they're also going to hell, because these verses here in verse 8 and 9, they actually link up to Psalm 82, which I will decipher next. Okay. Verse 1, God standing in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. This is going to happen during the Millennial Kingdom. Okay, and then it also ties into verse 6 and 7. I have said, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Of course, they were for my angels, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. Okay, so these verses then in Psalm 82 actually linked to Psalm 81 here, with these verses, the judgment of the gods, and then we got historical context thereafter. So this psalm here is actually a very significant psalm, and one that must be deciphered. Okay, so we're gonna be going verse by verse, folks. Never fear. Hachamim Navi is always here. Okay, so the breakdown here, folks, verses 1 to 3, Millennial Kingdom Prophecies, verses 4, 7, and 10 and 16 are under the law or have come to pass, and then verses 8 and 9, Millennial Kingdom Prophecies, the judgment of the gods, or the demons, if you like, and they tie into Psalm 82, verses 1, 6, and 7. Okay, so essentially, Psalm 81 is a Millennial Kingdom Psalm with some past historical context, but also, it brings in line, if you like, the judgment of the gods. Okay, so it's actually quite an interesting psalm for many reasons. All right, so let us go with the first verse. Okay, sing aloud unto God our strength. Now, notice how sing is in capitals. This is actually a commandment. Sing, and this is like a neon sign. Okay, why is this happening? Because Jesus is there. Okay, sing aloud unto our God, our strength. This is Jesus. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. That's right. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob, because Jesus is coming from the Millennium Kingdom. In fact, he's right there, because there is a commandment here: sing aloud unto God our strength. Okay. So for the program here, of course, verse 1, sing, which is actually an order. Make joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. The words make a noise. Okay, in other words, that word there, make, and that word there, noise. Okay, already tells us that Jesus, the Messiah, has arrived to take over as King of Israel. Okay, so the fact that it says, make a joyful noise. Okay, like it says here, make a joyful noise. Okay, as well as sing. These words are telling us that Jesus is right there in the Millennium Kingdom. Okay. Uh, then, of course, the celebrations follow on. Verse 2, like a psalm. In other words, get the Bible out and read to Jesus a psalm, and bring here the timbrel. Okay, the musical instrument. Okay, the pleasant harp. That used to be a type of the harp with the psaltery. Okay. Why is this? The coronation because this is going to be the time of the coronation of Jesus as the King of Israel. Because look what it says here: blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed. The time appointed here, this is the Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, because Jesus is coming to rule as the King of Israel. So the Jewish people have to blow the trumpet on our solemn feast day. Okay, so this is actually interesting, because this verse 3 here actually links to a few prophecies in Ezequiel. Okay, so on my program here, the notes that I've written down. Okay, blow the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed of our solemn feast day. And blow the trumpet in the new moon, in the Feast of Tabernacles, or Sukkot. This actually ties into the prophecies of Ezekiel 46, verses 1 and 2, which are under the law, and Ezekiel 44, 1 and 3, okay, which are for the Millennium Kingdom now. Let us go to Ezekiel, because they need to blow the trumpet in the new moon, okay, during the Feast of Tabernacles, okay, and Ezekiel points this out very clear. So we are on Ezekiel right now, folks. Let me head back to the last pages here on Ezekiel. Okay, so look how it nicely ties into in Ezekiel here 46, okay. Thus said the Lord God, the gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. Okay, so although this is under the law, then it has actually an application of what is needed to be done according to the Leviticus chapter 23. Okay, because Leviticus chapter 23 tells us about how all the feasts of the Lord, okay, should be accomplished. Okay, so it ties into Leviticus, if you like. Okay, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open. Okay, and the prince shall enter by the way of the porch of that gate. The prince, of course, is Jesus, or the porch of the gate without, and shall stand by the post of the gate, and the priest shall prepare his burnt offerings and his peace offering, and he shall worship at the threshold of the gate. Then he shall go forth, but the gate shall not be shut until the evening. Okay, and so on. But then, if you tie these verses here were actually under the law, which with these prophecies here in Ezekiel chapter 44, which are actually for the Millennium Kingdom, especially verses 1 and 2, okay? Then he brought me back the way of the gate of the outward sanctuary, which looketh towards the east, and it was shut. This is, of course, the golden gate in which Jesus is going to enter triumphantly after his mighty judgment in the valley of Jehoshaphat, okay, according to Joel chapter 3 verse 2, and also Matthew 25, the judgment of the sheep and the goats. Matthew 25, I think it was verses 32 and 33 from memory. But anyway, then said the Lord unto me, this gate shall be shut, it shall not be open, and no man shall enter in by it, because the Lord, the God of Israel, has entered in by it, therefore it shall be shut. So these are, of course, prophecies for the Millennium Kingdom. Okay, so you could combine the two if you like. Okay, and also tie it into Leviticus 23. The the how to perform the feast. Okay, how to perform the certain feast. If you go to Leviticus chapter 23, it gives you all the orders. All the orders for the holy convocations, if you like. The Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, first fruits, and so on. And then of course you go over the page and so on. Okay. Now let me just quickly get to Psalm 81. Okay. So basically, what's happening here on this verse 3, which is actually very important, is the blowing of the trumpet in the new moon. It's actually coinciding, like I just told you, with Ezequiel 46:1. With this cluster of prophecies. Ezequiel 46 verses 1 and 2, which are under the law, and also Ezequiel 44 verses 1 and 3, which are for the Millennium Kingdom, and it also ties to, like I said, to Leviticus chapter 23. Okay, so have a look at Leviticus here, chapter 23, about celebrating all these feasts, especially the Feast of Tabernacle, when the Jewish people have to blow the trumpet for the coronation of Jesus, the King of Israel. Okay, so moving forward then to verse 4, for this was a statute for Israel, and a law of the God of Jacob. Yeah, of course, this is a statute of Israel in Leviticus chapter 23. Okay, the Jewish people back then, they had to follow the law. Okay, the law of God. And so in order to celebrate all these feasts, okay, the Jewish people has to follow, the statute for Israel under the law, like I just showed you in Leviticus 23. Okay, so for verse 4 then, God, for this was a statute for Israel in the law of the God of Jacob. Yeah, just Leviticus laws. Okay, see Leviticus chapter 23. All right. So let me turn over the page here, folks. For 1 second, I'm going to head to verse 5. Now, verse 5 is actually historical in importance. Like, Israel's disciples must understand this, because otherwise they are missing in the history. And I'll show you why. Now, it says here, this he ordained in Joseph. In other words, all of these verses here, these 4 verses, none of these 4 verses going to come to pass, okay, unless this has been ordained in Joseph, like it says here, for a testimony. Okay, now, how can we understand this? Is that these 4 verses, of course, God will have to bring the Jewish people out of Egypt, if you like, and make a covenant with them. There is no way that any of these 4 verses, if you like, will have come to pass if Israel didn't have any statutes for a covenant with God. And so these 4 verses will have to come to pass before this first round took place. Now, this first round is actually symbolic in many ways. Okay, what it's trying to say is Jesus ordained Joseph for a testimony. Okay, when he went out to the land of Egypt. What's happening here is that this testimony, okay, is It's actually symbolic. That's right. It's actually symbolic. And you need to understand this because what's happening here is that when Jacob, when he died, okay, then Joseph went out, okay, and that was the most symbolic part of his testimony. When Jacob died, he went out to bury his father, okay, at the cave of Macpherson. And because he went out, okay, with his brothers and a lot of dignitaries of Pharaoh, okay, Joseph went with his brothers and also with many Egyptian high dignitaries, if you like, and a whole company of them to support, their journey, if you like, to the cave of Macpherson to bury Jacob, okay. And this is what you need to understand. And because he went out, that was the most significant thing that he did when he went out to the land of Egypt. In other words, he went out and that became a testimony. That's right. And so what is this testimony? The testimony is that in order for all this to happen, okay, this testimony was symbolic in that Joseph was demonstrating that hey, one day, as a head up to, bury Jacob in the cave of Macpherson, one day we the Jewish people, we are going to be coming out of Egypt, okay, and we are going to conquer the land of Canaan and become a nation, the nation of Israel, okay. So this here ordaining Joseph for a testimony is actually saying that as Joseph went out to bury Jacob, the testimony was that one day Israel will come out of Egypt, okay, and they will become a nation in order that all of these verses will come to pass. Because verses 1 to 4 cannot come to pass, okay, unless God established a covenant with Moses, okay. So the fact that he's saying this he ordained Joseph, okay, so in other words, all of these was ordained Joseph for the testimony, meaning that the example bury Jacob, that one day, all of this will come to pass when God will make a covenant with Moses and the Jewish people. And I'll show you what my notes in a moment. What he went out through the language where I heard a language that I understood. Of course, the Egyptian language was actually something that Joseph was foreign to, if you like, because Joseph, of course, he was Jewish, So for verse 5 then, I've got quite a bit of a story here. This needs to be understood. Because verse 5, this is historical for Israel. This verse here, verse 5, is part of Jewish history as to how they become a nation. So, I'm going to link a lot of scriptures here, okay? So this here, Jesus ordaining Joseph for a testimony. In order for verses 1 to 4 to come to pass, God needed first to covenant the Jewish people under Moses. If you read Exodus 24:7, he read the covenant, and people say, yes, we accepted him. This is when I to God, Then the symbolic action of the testimony, okay, the symbolic action of the testimony, Genesis 30, after the death of Jacob, is symbolic actually in Genesis 50 verse 7. The symbolic that Israel will come back to Canaan to possess the land, prophesied to Joseph in Genesis 50:24. Okay, so so this to be understood, that there was a symbolic action for this testimony, okay? Joseph was actually going out to heaven to bury. This actually is actually symbolic of a testimony that one day the Jewish people will become a nation. Because look at this Genesis 50, especially this verse 7 of Leviticus. That is actually is very interesting. So let's go to Genesis 50, verse 7. Okay, and so Genesis chapter 50, verse 7. Okay, and Joseph went up to bury his father. All the sons of Pharaoh, the elders of his house, and all the elders of the land of Egypt. Okay, now the fact that Joseph, this verse said, went up to bury his father, this is kind of like the symbolic action, because they're on the track. Joseph said here in Exodus chapter 50, verse 24, and Joseph said unto his brethren, I died, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob. Okay, so this is why it's symbolic as well, because Joseph would tell to his brethren, if you like, that one day God was going to bring, his people to the land of Canaan, so that, of course, the land of Joshua, in the next generation, Israel. That's why, let me just go back to Psalm 81. That's why this verse has to be very clear and understood and deciphered. All of these, okay, did Jesus ordaining Joseph for a testimony, meaning that as Joseph went out of Egypt to bury Jacob, that one day, that Israel will become a nation. That this going out of Joseph is actually a testimony, okay, saying, that, eventually Israel will become a nation, that eventually Israel will become a nation, like I just showed you on that verse, in verse 50, on Genesis 50, verse 7, the symbolic that Israel one day will come back to Canaan and possess the land, prophesied to Joseph in Genesis 50, verse 24. So, it was a symbolic action, this testimony. Symbolic meaning Joseph going up, okay? The symbolic action is Joseph actually going up to bury his father Jacob, okay, for a testimony, as he's saying, hey, one day Israel will become a nation, like it was prophesied to Joseph. That's why this verse 5 is actually very historical for Israel, and it has to be deciphered properly, because this verse 5 here is actually a verse that relates, in a historical context to the birth of the nation of Israel, because on Genesis 50 verse 7 here, we see the symbolic that Israel one day will come back to Canaan, okay, to possess the land prophesied to Joseph in Genesis 50 verse 24, like I just showed you here. Sorry to carry on a bit, but I'm trying to explain this. I just want to make sure that I'm understood, because there is a symbolic action, there is a symbolic action of the testimony. Okay, so basically, just to recap, this he ordaining Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt. When he went out, this testimony, or this ordained testimony, when he went out to bury his father Jacob at the cave of Machpelah, but it was also prophesied to Joseph there on the track in Genesis 50 verse 24, that one day, the Jewish people will go back up to Canaan. And of course, we know the account of Joshua, that he went up, to conquer Canaan so that Israel could finally become a nation. So this is why this verse is actually historical, because um, it's a verse that has a lot of historical context in terms of Israel becoming a nation. It's kind of like a birth of a testimony, if you like. So this is why this needs to be understood and deciphered properly. Anyway, moving along then, verse 6. I removed his shoulder from the burden. So in other words, Jesus removed the burden in that it says his hands were delivered from post. Basically, what he's trying to say here, long story short, is that Jesus took the burden from Joseph. He was not going to allow him, to be a slave. His hands were delivered from the pots. Okay, back in those size pots, that's the technology that they had, to carry water and food. So, in fact, God made Jacob a governor in the land of Egypt, because here from my notes here on verse 6, and it says, I removed his shoulder from the burden, his hands were delivered from the pots. Okay, it's kind of like a figure of speech here. Jesus did not allow Joseph to become a slave, if you like, but rather Jesus blessed Joseph to become the governor of Egypt. Instead, if you look at Genesis 45 verses 8 and 9, he was actually the governor of Egypt. Okay, so let us quickly go to Genesis 45, 8 and 9. Genesis 49, 8 and 9. Okay, so here we go. Genesis 40, 45. Oh, one sec, folks. Genesis 45. So here we go. And so now it was not you that sent me hither, but God. He had made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord. Okay, in other words, a governor of all his house and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Okay, haste you and go out to my father and said unto him, Thus said thy son Joseph, God hath made me Lord, okay, of all Egypt, or governor. Okay, there are some scriptures that says that he's a governor here in Genesis, if you like. Okay. So let me get back to Psalm 81 here. So basically, here in verse 6, God did not allow Joseph to become a slave, but instead, God made him, if you like, the governor, okay, of Egypt. Okay. Let me turn the page here on the program as we head towards the middle of this Psalm, verse 7. It says here, Thou callest in trouble, and I deliver thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I brought thee at the waters of Meribah. Okay, so this already come to pass under the law. Basically what he's saying is, you call me and I deliver thee. Okay, so basically for verse 7, let me just show you the scriptures. Thou callest in trouble and I deliver thee. If you read Exodus 3:7, God speaks to Moses in the midst of the burning bush. Okay, now I'm not going to show you Exodus 3:7. You can read that for yourself because the video is almost half an hour. It's going to take quite a while to upload, but of course most Bible scholars know this already anyway. So God speaks to Moses in the midst of the burning bush. I answer thee in the secret place of thunder. That's of course Mount Sinai, when God gave Moses the Ten Commandments. If you read Exodus chapter 20, verses 12 to 26, and also the covenant, in Exodus 24:7. Okay. I brought thee, in other words, I tested thee at the waters of Meribah. Okay, this was when Moses disobeyed God and struck the rock at Horeb, if you like, twice. Therefore Moses and that generation spent 40 years in the wilderness until they all died out, and Moses anointed Joshua to go in and to conquer Canaan for themselves with the next generation, okay, because that generation that was with Moses for 40 years in the wilderness, they actually died out, okay, because they were very unfaithful towards Jesus, Anyway, so Joshua went in to conquer Canaan for themselves with a new generation to make the nation of Israel, okay. So basically, this is what verse 7 is, long story short. Thou callest in trouble and I deliver thee. You can link this to Exodus 3:7 when God speaks to Moses in the midst of the burning bush. And then where it says, I answer thee in the secret place of thunder. That's of course in Mount Sinai. When Moses received the 10 commandments, you should read Exodus 20, verses 12 to 26, and also the covenant in Exodus 24, verse 7. Of course, it's more prophecies. And where it says, I brought thee or tested thee at the waters of Meribah. Of course, the waters of Meribah is when Moses strikes a rock. Moses disobeyed God and struck the rock twice. Therefore, Moses and that generation spent 40 years in the wilderness, and they all died out. Okay, and then Moses anointed Joshua to go in and to conquer Canaan for themselves with a new generation to make the nation of Israel. Okay, so that's long story short, folks. Let me just turn the page here so we can head now to verses 8 and 9. So, in the midst of this psalm here, which is not that long, it's only 16 verses, there's actually two prophecies which actually are linking to the Millennium Kingdom, which are actually for the Millennium Kingdom, but are actually linking to Psalm 82. And these are almost kind of like hidden here in the middle, sandwiched in the middle of all these Millennium Kingdom and historical accounts, because look what it says here. Hear, O my people, and I will testify unto thee, O Israel, if you will hearken unto me. So God is saying here quite clearly, hey Israel, my people, listen to me very carefully. When I come back for the millennial kingdom, there shall no strange God be in thee, neither shall thou worship any strange God. Okay? So basically, we know that there's a lot of gods today, principalities all over the world. But what's going to happen is that in the millennial kingdom, upon the return of Jesus, we all know, according to Revelation, that Jesus is going to put the false prophet and the Antichrist into the lake of fire and brimstone. He's going to burn the devil for 1,000 years in the abyss, okay? And so because the devil is the master, if you like, of all these gods all over the world, if the devil himself is going to be put into the lake of fire and brimstone, into the abyss, sorry, and the false prophet and the Antichrist into the lake of fire and brimstone, then these gods that remain, they're not going to have any leader to look up to. In fact, they're all going to be judged, and all of them are going to go to hell, because it says here, hear my people, okay, O Israel, there shall no strange God be in thee, neither shall they worship any strange gods. This can only happen during the millennial kingdom, and in fact, it actually links to Psalm 82, verse 1 here. God standeth in the congregation of the mighty, he judges among the gods. So this is going to happen during the millennial kingdom, okay? God stands in the congregation of the mighty is actually, all these world leaders, if you like, and all these, gods, if you like, the Antichrist, the false prophet, the devil, all this congregation of mighty, okay? And that God is going to judge them, and they are all going to go to hell, okay? And then it links also here to verses 6 and 7. I have said, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. Of course, they are fallen angels, but you shall die like men and fall like one of the princes. So when Jesus comes back for the millennial kingdom, he's going to judge all these gods, and they're all gonna go to hell, you know. So we get to this Psalm 82 after. So let me just finish with Psalm 81. Okay, so yeah, basically verses 8 and 9 is a clear indication that, God is saying to Israel, hey, my people hear me, I'm testifying unto you, O Israel, and you better listen to me. There's not going to be any more strange gods in the and you're not going to worship any strange gods anymore. This can only happen during the Millennium Kingdom because today we still have principalities. You know, uh, you know, not every Jewish person is a believer in Jesus. So today, the world is very complicated. There are many people that are atheists, non-believers, and things like that. So the only time when there's going to be no gods will be when Jesus comes back for the Millennium Kingdom for the judgment. And here this verse 8 and 9 actually linked to Psalm 82. Okay, so for verses 8 and 9, are linked together. Maybe at the future destruction of the gods in the Millennium Kingdom. And these verses linked to Psalm 82, verses 1, 6, and 7, like I just showed you. Okay. Now, verses 10, 10 to 16, then these are actually quite historical, if you like, and they have already come to pass already under the law. Okay, so basically on verse 10 it says, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. Of course, we all know this. This already happened. So on verses 10, I'm putting here verses 10 to 16. Pardon me, are already historical. I have come to pass already. So verse 10, out of Egypt. Okay. Verse 11, but my people will not hearken unto my voice, and Israel will none of me. Okay. So basically, this is what happened during the wilderness. Okay. Verse 11, as we put here, the Jewish people spent 40 years in the wilderness because they will not hearken. Okay. They will not hearken unto Jesus. That's why they spent 40 years in the wilderness. Okay. So in verse 12, so I guide them up to their own heart's lust, and they walked in their own counsels. So for verse 12, I put lust, okay, which led to death in the wilderness. On verse 12, the lust led to the death in the wilderness of that generation. Pardon me. And that generation did not enter into Canaan, okay, with Joshua, okay. Verse 13, all that my people had hearkened unto me, and Israel had walked in my ways. This is kind of like Lamentations, if you like. So in verse 13, if only, this is God's lamentation, if only they would listen to me and they didn't fall into their own lust, they wouldn't have spent 40 years in the wilderness, So if only, like God's lamentation, if you like, like it says here in verse 13, if only, all that my people had hearkened unto me, like if only, verse 14, I should soon have subdued their enemies and turned my hand against their adversaries. So basically it follows from 13 in that if only the Jewish people would have had more faith in Jesus, God would have subdued all the enemies, and it would have been easier for them to enter into Canaan and to make the nation of Israel, So, on verse 14, God could have made things easier, for the Jewish people, their battles. For Israel, if they displayed faith, but they didn't, Verse 15, which follows through, if you like, the historical context here of these verses, the hiders of the Lord should have submitted themselves unto him, of course, God would have fought all the battles for the Jewish people, but their time should have endured forever, of course, if only they had faith, So God could have subdued all of Israel's enemies, okay, and God will not have to lament. If only they would have listened, you know. But they spent 40 years in the wilderness, So, and there, verse 15 here to finish up, Lamentations again. If only, it could all have been a blessing from the beginning. If only, like verse 16, he should have fed them also with the finest of wheat, and with honey out of the rock should I have satisfied thee, Yeah, of course, if the Jewish people here in these verses here, who have five in Jesus, Jesus could have subdued all the enemies and they could have entered easily into the land of Canaan, and God could have satisfied them, with honey, out of the rock should I have satisfied thee, out of the rock should I have satisfied thee. This rock, I think, is actually Temple Mount. It could have a double meaning. This rock will well be, Jesus running from Temple Mount, and honey out of the rock should I have satisfied thee. So it could have that meaning as well, like kind of like a symbolic double meaning, He should have fed them also with the finest of wheat. Yeah, of course, he would have fed the Jewish people, with all the proper food, and with honey out of the rock should I have satisfied thee. In other words, kind of like saying, it's kind of like a figure of speech, and with honey out of the rock, kind of like saying, hey, um, in the Temple Mount, in Moriah, uh, Jesus, he could have, the Jewish people rebuild the temple for him, and out of that rock, he could have satisfied, the Jewish people. With honey, of course, is symbolic, saying, hey, because I'm your God, and I'm here, on Temple Mount, I could have made your life sweet, so to speak, So, yeah, this is it, folks, 42 minutes. I do apologize for the length of this video. I think that verse 5 took a lot. I really had to explain myself here, especially with Joseph, how this he ordained Joseph for a testimony. I think this is actually historical. Alright, folks, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.